Hey everyone, let's talk about the rules that apply if you want to work while collecting Social Security benefits. This is called the earnings limit. And in today's video, I want to cover the rules that will be effective for 2024 and then answer some of the questions that I get asked all the time about these rules. So these are questions like, does the Social Security Administration look at single or joint income? What happens to benefits that are withheld if you go over the limit? Do you get those back? How is the earnings limit actually applied? When does the limit switch from an annual limit to a monthly limit? And should you tell the Social Security Administration if you are going to go over the limit? Will the earnings limit affect spousal or children's benefits? And then the big one, what actually counts as income or earnings? But before we jump into all of that, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you won't miss any of the new videos that we have coming out this year. We know that in the near future, we're going to start seeing a lot of changes to Social Security. This, I promise, is not a maybe. It has to happen. And if any of it gets close to law, I'll make a video about it right here. Oh, and one other thing. Within the next week or so, I'll be updating my Social Security cheat sheet. This is the sheet where I list the earnings limit, the taxation thresholds, the reductions and increases for various filing gauges. And there's a lot more on there as well. I often like to say that it's like getting the most important stuff from the 100,000-page Social Security website, all condensed down to just 2 little pages. So if you're already on my email list, you don't need to download it again because you're going to get this automatically. But if you're not, the easy way to get added is to download the 2023 version of the cheat sheet. And as soon as I update it with the new numbers, I'll send it out to you. Okay, so the way I want to approach this video is to jump right into the numbers that are effective for Social Security retirement benefits in 2024. And then I'll answer the big questions that I get all the time on this earnings limit. Now you want to stay tuned for these questions because this is what ties it all together and makes it make sense. So before we jump into the earnings limits rules, there are 2 things that you need to know. First, the rules that we're talking about today only apply to Social Security retirement benefits. So this is not for SSI. This is not for Social Security disability benefits. Those 2 programs have a different set of rules. The second thing you need to know is that these rules only apply before your full retirement age. Once you reach full retirement age, there is no limit on earnings. So it's pretty important to actually know when your full retirement age is because it can be different depending on your year of birth. For anyone born in 1954 or earlier, the full retirement age is 66. And then for every year thereafter, it increases by 2 months until it gets to 1960, at which point the full retirement age is set at 67. With that background, here are the limits. If you make more than $22,320 in 2024, the Social Security Administration will withhold $1 in benefits for every $2 over that amount that you earn. The one exception is during the calendar year you attain full retirement age. During that period, the earnings limit that will apply to you nearly triples to $59,520. The withholding amount on dollars earned over that limit is not as steep either. For every $3 over the limit, the Social Security Administration withholds $1 in benefits. So that is the earnings limit, but that's a very simplified explanation that probably left you with a lot of questions. So let's get into the ones that you're probably asking. Does the Social Security Administration look at single or joint income? Most married couples are used to having all of their household income counted together in one big pot. For example, if you file your taxes as married filing jointly, earnings from both spouses are counted together to determine how much you owe in taxes. So it does make sense to wonder what happens if a spouse earns more than the Social Security income limit. How does that affect your benefits if you want to file early? Well, the simple but not fully complete answer is that joint income is not what's counted. The earnings test is an individual test. If you're married and you each receive Social Security benefits from your work, your spouse's excess earnings cannot turn off your benefit. As long as the benefits that you receive do come from your own work history, they are insulated. For example, if your wife goes back to work, it may affect her benefit payment, but it won't affect yours. But here's where this can get a little bit tricky. If anyone is collecting benefits from your work and you have excess earnings, so for example, spousal or children's benefits, their benefit will also be affected. So an example of that is if you have a wife collecting a spousal benefit and you have excess earnings, both your benefit and her spousal portion of her benefit will be suspended. And the same does go for children's benefits as well. Now, the exception to this is for an ex-spouse. Ex-spouse's excess earnings cannot affect your Social Security benefit. So if your ex-spouse goes back to work and you're collecting part of your benefit from their work history, it's not going to affect your total benefit payment. What happens to withheld benefits? Well, if your benefits are withheld because of the earnings limit, they are not gone forever. At your full retirement age, the administration will run a calculation that's called the adjustment to the reduction factor. This says that your ongoing permanent benefit can only be reduced for those months that you actually received a Social Security check. So the months where you didn't receive a benefit due to being over the income limit won't count against your reduction due to early filing. Here's how this works. When you file early, your benefits are reduced by a reduction factor, and that factor is typically 0.5% for the 36-month period immediately preceding your full retirement age, and then 0.512% for months in excess of 36. Now, if you want to average this for a little napkin math here, you can just say that each month of early filing will reduce your benefit by about 0.5%. Now, that's not completely precise, but it's close enough. So for every month you don't receive your benefit, that 0.5% is added back to your benefit when it's recalculated at full retirement age. And then we have, how is the earnings limit applied? Well, if you exceed the limit, the Social Security Administration will withhold several months of benefits at a time. For example, let's say you have a monthly benefit of $2,000 and that you'll be over the earnings limit by $10,000. Well, with a withholding amount of $1 for every $2 over the limit, that means that about $5,000 in benefits should be withheld. So they would withhold your benefit payment from January to March, and then in April, your checks would start back. Should you tell the Social Security Administration if you're going to be over the limit? Yes. If you know that you're going to be over the limit, you need to contact the administration and let them file a work report with the new estimated earnings. This will result in benefits being withheld, but I can assure you that you do not want to get into an overpayment situation and try to unravel those letters that you get from the administration. And I promise they will catch up with earnings. And if you get an overpayment letter, some of those don't show up until 4 or 5 years down the road, and they're nearly impossible to decipher. When does the limit switch from an annual limit to a monthly limit? Well, thankfully, the Social Security Administration does recognize that some people retire mid-year after they've already had earnings that were over the annual income limit. For these individuals, there's a monthly income limit. The Social Security Administration says that the monthly earnings test applies when an entitled beneficiary has one or more non-service months in a grace year. Here's what that means. In the first calendar year you receive Social Security benefits and have a month of earnings that is less than the monthly earnings limit amount, the income limit turns into a monthly income limit test. It'll run for the remainder of that calendar year, and then after that, it's back to the annual test. And your monthly income limit is simply the applicable annual limit for that year divided by 12. Will the earnings limit affect spousal or children's benefits? Now, I know we covered this earlier, but I do want to pause on this and reiterate it because this catches some people by surprise. If your benefits are stopped because you're over the limit, it will affect your benefits and any benefits paid from your benefits. So if there's anyone collecting benefits from your work and you have excess earnings, their benefit will also be affected. And then the big question, what kind of income actually counts as earnings for purposes of that test? Effectively, how does the Social Security Administration define earnings? Well, while much of the ins and outs of Social Security benefits seem to be designed maybe to be confusing, in this case, the administration makes it very easy to understand for most types of income that people typically receive. The most common types of income that will not count towards the earnings limit include pension payments, most annuity payments, money from IRAs and other retirement account distributions, dividends, interest income, and capital gains. Now, the income that does count against you when considering the earnings limit is gross wages from employment income and net earnings from self-employment. And plus, there are some additional rules on the time you spend in the business in that first year if you're self-employed that you need to understand as well. Now, that addresses about 90% of all of the different types of income that exist, but there are numerous other types of income that can cause some confusion. And for a more complete view on the types of income, you really ought to check out my video, The Social Security Income Limit, What Counts as Income. I'm going to link that up and the article on the same topic down in the description. So that covers the basics on the earnings limit for 2023. If you have questions, be sure to leave them down in the comments below. I don't always get a chance to respond, but I do try to read them all. And also, before you leave, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button and let the robots at YouTube know that it has value that other people need to see as well. Thanks so much for watching.